recipient back when it was the Oregon Need Grant, but I chaired the commission that gave it out. The Oregon Student Assistance Commission. It doesn't exist anymore as a citizen commissioner governed body. It's just governed by a staff person. But at one time, there were citizen commissioners. And I also participated in the definition of residency in 1993 in front of the State Board of Higher Education as a student. Just like all these young people, I was lobbying for what the definition of residency meant. And residency is pretty tight. And so for Representative Noble, I just want to point to the parts that help ensure these are for people who have gone to high school in Oregon. It's on page 2, starting in line 3. That's where it starts, but line 6 is the key one in 10. So during each of the 3 years prior to receiving a high school diploma, they had to have gone to school in Oregon. And then the 5 years, they had to have gone to school in the U.S. So you couldn't just move here in 1 year and gain access to in-state tuition because you weren't an Oregon high school attendee. And that's the key thing about having people move here just to go to college, for example. And the residency requirements for the university system are pretty strict for a reason. We used to have reciprocity with Washington and others, and we kind of let them go back and forth, and then Washington canceled or we canceled, I'm not sure who. And whoever canceled first, the other one cut them off. And it pinched a lot of kids, especially ones who had divorced parents who lived in both states. Initially, you actually, even though one parent paid a lot of Oregon taxes, you couldn't get residency if you lived with the other one. So the goal, for me at least, is let's try and make sure the parents and or the kids were living here for a while during their high school years, presumably paying taxes. Obviously, 49% of the people don't pay any taxes in Oregon at all, so not everybody pays taxes. But as I mentioned before, lots of people who work in the underground economy pay taxes and aren't able to ever access their benefits. I know that. So having said all that, the reason I think this doesn't have a fiscal is because the only thing this bill's changing in something the legislature's in charge of is whether or not the student has to apply for that federal number or not. And I don't think there's a fiscal impact for them applying for that federal number or not. They already are getting in-state tuition now. So the same number of students is going to keep getting in-state tuition later. It's just they don't have to apply for the number. Unless you felt that the scholarship portion was what was going to cause more. But again, that's up to the donors and the schools. So if a university already allows undocumented residents to apply, this won't change that. This just will validate that nobody could challenge it. But if a donor doesn't want an undocumented resident to be eligible for their scholarship, they're still allowed to preclude them under this because it's still subject to the policies of the universities, and all scholarships are always subject to the policies of the donor, at OSAC at least. The donor sets the criteria. So I truly don't think it will cost any more money, but it will save some people who are trapped as hostages. I totally agree with you in this federal immigration debate. Most people agree the DACA kids should not be the ones that we're debating. They should be validated and allowed to stay, and we're trying to stop them here from becoming targets by having a number that is traceable. So when one administration flips to another and another flips back to another, they're not constantly in fear because there's this identifiable number. I will note the thing we did not take out here, in the Senate version at least, we did not take out the requirement that the student continue to obtain citizenship. So it says that they do need to show intention to become a citizen, a lawful permanent resident, by submitting to the public university an official copy of the student's application to register with a federal immigration program or a federal deportation deferral program, or a statement of intent that they will seek to obtain citizenship as permitted. That's still in here to make sure they are still trying to become citizens. It's just that ITIN number is the part that I think it doesn't serve a real useful purpose compared to the pledge that they were brought here, they want to be here, they want to be American citizens, they're in the process to try and become American citizens, and I don't want them kicked out of school. Because frankly, I don't think they're going to leave anyway, and I would rather have them in school getting educated than out in the street without an education, try to figure out how to survive, personally.